All right, looks like the registration has slowed down just a bit, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for taking a half hour of your morning and spending it with us. We hope we find some of this insightful. This morning, we're going to talk about strategic segmentation for smarter channel growth, particularly how we at IMPARTNER view segmentation, and kind of how we see great companies, top performing companies, really take that and turn segmentation and turn it into a real strategic asset within their program for helping them actually drive growth. There's a couple of things that we want to cover today, agenda-wise. If we can get the slide to change. First, we're gonna talk about why segmentation in general, why that is something that you should be looking at very strategically as a real asset to your program and a real driver for growth and really increasing the success and performance you're getting out of your partners, rather than just kind of using segmentation as a means of bucketing or organize your partners like it's a bug collection. And then we're going to talk about 4 rules for smarter segmentation, kind of the IMPARTNER method, if you will, and then how you actually go about implementing a segmentation strategy once you've identified one. So first and foremost, why segmentation? I have to give credit where due. I kind of borrowed the slide, modified a little bit from our very funny CMO, Dave Taylor. And really what segmentation is about, what's really driving it to be used as a strategic asset, is the constant demand and pressure from the organization to increase revenue, go faster, and scale at a higher rate. You've got tight margins and a hiring shortage, which means that hiring direct sales folks to scale up your revenue driving operations is really not a great option for organizations looking to scale. And ever increasing and more pressure behind growth targets means you need to do more with your indirect channel. A lot of the research and things that we see and have done ourselves really validates what we see from other parties out there in the channel management space, that really hiring and augmenting direct sales and finding those personnel is extremely difficult. And so the real driver behind segmentation is, I can't increase my direct sales. I've got to get more out of my channel sales environment, my channel sales ecosystem, and the partners that I do have. So really, it's kind of being driven by really kind of 2 questions, 2 desires that smart channel managers that are tasked with getting more out of the limited resources they have. If you got a five-person channel team, which is not uncommon, and managing tens of thousands of partners, how do you do that in a very smart, targeted way? So first and foremost, they're looking to figure out, how do I spend more of my resources on the 20% of the partners that generate the most result, that 80-20 rule. In some programs, we even see that as much as a 95-5%, where 5% of your partners are driving 90% of your revenue. Yet there's a lot of uncertainty over which of those partners you're actually spending time with. Sometimes that 80% group of partners that's not driving a lot of revenue tends to suck up a lot of your time and resources, both from personnel standpoint, maybe from MDF standpoint, other resources, so on and so forth. And then secondly, once you kind of establish that and you're getting better and more smart about how you're allocating your resources to existing partners, it's about capturing what those top performers are doing well, so that you can then replicate it and get the next 20% of partners achieving the same result. So imagine from a scale standpoint, if you have 80% of your partners that are not really performing well, and if you can take half of those and get 40% of your partner base now achieving half of what your top 20% is, you've just doubled your channel revenue, just like that. So there's a lot of power in using segmentation to really drive at the fact that you need to get more out of what you're doing instead of just doing more of what you're doing. And we see this very commonly in channel organizations, right? They're just trying to do more of the same thing. They're not necessarily doing it in a way that's going to get more out of the activities and the resources that they are spending. So it's about being smarter and better leveraging what you do have already from a resource standpoint. So getting the most out of the partners you have, there's really kind of 3 things that dial into that. One is being able to focus resources, as we talked about, on the top performing partners and reward them for that performance as a driver to continue to develop that group. So it's about figuring out, who do we invest in, and quite frankly, who do we divest from? A lot of successful companies that we see actually take either design their program so that the bottom 10% tend to attrition out, or they know how to, based on the segmentation strategies that they've implemented and refined over time, have used those segmentation strategies to help them identify from the outset how likely a given partner is to succeed and what that ideal demographic or kind of profile looks like for a partner, so they know who to be chasing and who's unlikely to be a top performing partner that they should not be spending a lot of resources or making a lot of investment in. You also want to use that to identify those leading indicators of partner performance potential, so you can figure out what makes a top performing partner, and then turn around and design some strategies to actually replicate that. Ultimately, the goal there is to help all partners reach their individual potential, and it's about how to bring others to the top as well. So you take that 5% partner performance pool and you make that your top 20, 30, 40, and now you've got 50% of your partners really performing at a very high level, and that means a tremendous scale in the channel. So ultimately, I kind of view segmentation and the application of segmentation in the partner space a lot like a teacher might view a classroom full of children or students, or maybe a parent may view all of their children. Ultimately, a teacher or a parent is going to want their students or children, or in this case partners, to reach their full potential. But anybody who's worked with students or has children will probably tell you, smiling, that the path for each of those individual students or children to get there is going to look very different. So in order to get any student in your classroom to achieve success, maybe that's graduating, attending college, whatever the case may be, each one of those is going to have unique needs, and you're going to have to apply resources differently and approach them differently, and kind of give different care and feeding to each of those based on their strengths, weaknesses, capabilities, and so on and so forth, in order to get them all to reach the same potential. So our first rule about being able to accomplish that is to ensure a balanced strategy. And what I mean is that segmentation has been very mechanical up until now. Traditionally, it's sort of just bucketing partners by taxonomy, sort of just by, oh, this partner is in this region, this partner likes blue, this partner likes dogs, and therefore we're just going to kind of categorize them. But you really want to be designing your segmentation strategy around 4 different things. One is around the partner's performance, or at least incentivizing that performance. 2 is very important, is the stage in the partner's life cycle with your ecosystem, meaning, are they brand new to the program? Have they been in the program for a while? Are they showing signs of disengaging? Are they still ramping up? Are they still learning the product? You want to design segmentation around each of those groups and each of those stages so that you can work with them and help them be driven through. Taxonomy, of course, which is just categorizing based on who they are. And one thing that's very, very important that a lot of companies overlook is having some segmentation strategy that's based on not only the partner company, but the individuals at those partner companies. Just like 20% of your partners are likely driving 80% of your revenue, at those individual partner companies, if you have a 10-person maybe reseller, for example, that's reselling your product, chances are of those 10 salespeople, there's 2 or 3, the same 20 to 80%, that's driving the majority of the revenue that's coming out of that partner. So focusing on the individuals at the partner is also extremely critical to getting overall success from that partner business entity. So, we kind of borrow a page and look at this very similar to we do consumer marketing segmentation. A lot of folks will be very familiar with that from a marketing background. Particularly in consumer marketing, you want to look at the demographic, just age, gender, occupation, just sort of the static attributes of who that individual is that you're targeting. The geography, and then you get a little bit smarter. You get into behavioral things like the benefits that they're seeking from a product, their readiness to buy, maybe their loyalty with your brand. And then psychographic, which can be very important as well. Their lifestyle, maybe their values, their interests, those types of things. But we apply that same sort of set of dimensions to partner segmentation, but now we have kind of two tiers of it here, right? So on an individual note, we want to look at the demographics of the individual person, maybe the salesperson at the partner company, based on their role, their language. The geography matters, of course, for a number of reasons. Behavioral components such as their engagement level within the program, how active they are in seeking certification, their performance, so their sales pipeline, their tier attainment, so on and so forth. And then at the company level, you really want to look at firmographic things, industry, partner, company size, partner type, those sort of things, which are pretty much given on a traditional segmentation type strategy. But you really get more value once you start looking at strategic potential, maybe growth potential, the individual partner ROI, so that you're dealing with maybe high ROI partners a little bit differently than you are low ROI partners, because feeding a high ROI partner is going to be a high value activity. rather than feeding a low ROI partner. You instead want to be spending your time with those low ROI partners and actually helping them to become more effective with the resources you are going to give them, rather than just taking a kind of a shotgun approach and distributing resources all over the place, some high, some low. And we kind of take and divide these dimensions into sort of two categories. One is just taxonomy. Again, this is just sort of categorizing them, organizing them like you might a bug collection. It's kind of the joke we use. And the other is really more strategic in nature, right? Looking at the behavior, performance, strategic value. So you want to have some, there is certainly something to be said around just taxonomizing the partners. That needs to happen for a number of reasons. But you also want to make sure that you're doing things around some strategic segmentation as well. SIRIUS Decisions is a well-known analyst firm, well-respected thought leader in the marketing space, and particularly in the channel space. And they have a segmentation matrix that's kind of very similar and aligns with kind of what we're talking about here today. They recommend 5 different approaches to segmentation. So geography, partner type, revenue, tier, and ultimately kind of that holy grail, or the thing that's going to drive the most revenue and ultimately value for your organization, is being able to put draw a line around the value that you're getting out of the partner. So again, who they are, where they are, certainly important, but we want to get even more strategic and talk about the value that they have or potentially have or represent to your channel business. So the baseline, if we kind of put a hierarchy of needs in terms of sophistication of channel segmentation strategy, starting at the bottom, a necessary foundation is, of course, again, that taxonomization. So the region, partner type, what products they sell, the primary vertical they served. And the reason that we focus on that, first and foremost, is to start providing a baseline of relevant content and a tailored experience. So the access to the right programs, you may need to taxonomize purely for reporting's sake, especially on the region level, on a partner type, reseller versus distributor, for example. And once you've got that kind of foundation laid, you really want to start getting a little bit more strategic and talk about segmentations and designing segments around the stage and the life cycle with your channel ecosystem. So the time and program, their progress towards engagement, those types of things, how they're progressing towards ramping into revenue. And this is vital, because this is how you really ensure that you're not just adding 10,000 partners like you would Facebook friends, for example, but you're taking a partner in from the very first day, a brand new partner that's wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. You want to have segmentation strategies around working specifically with those partners, because you're going to want to provide a certain tailored experience to them at that stage. You want to be giving them, certain events, certain hands-on training, certain, personal time, and spending some time with them, getting them ramped. So as they're progressing toward their potential, ramping to revenue, this is ultimately about making sure that each step or stage, as they're progressing from first grade to sixth grade to high school, to use our analogy, that they have a tailored experience and the right dialed in content and support that's tailored to them at every stage along the way. And then finally, when you have those two things in place, really kind of the mountaintop here is segmenting around performance. And this is to help you understand who to invest in. It's to incent partners and reward them. It's how you're going to allocate resources. And then in many cases, we're going to recommend that using performance segmentation is how you're going to provide and differentiate which benefits are going to be provided to partners. So particularly, which MDF you're going to send to them based on their ROI, those growth indicators, so you can tell, hey, this is a potentially high performing partner we should invest in, and their revenue attainment, so on and so forth. So ultimately, you end up with a very balanced strategy between things that are just taxonomizing and organizing partners, making sure you have segments drawn around their stage in the life cycle, and then segments drawn around their performance. So, for example, taxonomy might just be, whether they're North America, EMEA, whether they're reseller or distributor. Stage in the life cycle, you have segments that you're targeting things to new partners, maybe inactive partners. You have actually segments that are identifying at-risk partners, so that you can reach out and provide very tailored experience and tailored content programs for those folks. And then on the performance side, maybe those who have been identified for a fast track program, those who are under overperforming, those who have high, or almost as important, who has limited growth potential, and we just don't feel that there's a large, scalable future with the partner relationship there. So number two really revolves around tiers, because the follow-up question we generally get to this topic here is, well, where does tiering fall into that? And so we give rule number two, we would submit that you ditch absolute tiering and you only level up according to a plan. What we mean by that is traditional gold, silver, platinum that's based on absolute attainment, say $1 million revenue, $10 million revenue, so on and so forth. Actually, we would submit and challenge that it devaluates and demotivates partners in many cases, unless it is based on an individualized plan. To kind of illustrate this, we actually have two screenshots. So we fly a lot of Delta here at IMPARTNER when we come out visit our customers and folks. We have actually two screenshots. On the left is actually my Sky Miles, and on the right is actually our CMOs. And you can see, for example, the requirements. I typically end up at gold every year, and Dave ends up as platinum or sometimes diamond. But the rate at which I travel, just based on my responsibilities and my nature of my role here at IMPARTNER, I'm just flat never going to be doing the type of volume or spending, particularly what is required to get to diamond status. So you notice that 250K spend, I'm just not going to ever spend that. So diamond status or even platinum status is really no motivation whatsoever to me, because it's just completely outside of my stratosphere. You also want to note that moving the mark, and Delta, for example, did this with their program. They changed that waiver from 25 to 250. So they completely kind of cut off a big segment of their loyalty program, because it's just unattainable at the scale that they operate, right? If I'm a 10-person reseller shop, I'm just not going to be able to compete with a large partner like a CDW, for example. I'm never going to attain that highest status. So the tiering really is of no motivation to me. And you end up focusing then only on your high tiering partners, and you don't focus on those smaller partners who are actually churning out a very potentially higher ROI per dollar invested. So you may have a smaller partner who's stuck in the silver status that has a very high ROI. So if you invest $1 in that partner, you're going to get 10 back. But you're over here focusing only on your maybe diamond partners because they've achieved a higher absolute rate, but their ROI is actually lower. So for every dollar you're investing them, you're only getting $2 back. So if you're able to focus with a large group of those smaller partners and not be dissuaded from doing so based on the tiering, you're going to drive a lot more value. So we would submit that tiering should not be based on absolute attainment, but should always be based on an individualized plan or sales target. So that as a partner, regardless of my size, I can achieve gold or platinum or silver or diamond or plutonium or unobtainium status based on achieving relative to my capabilities as a partner. If I'm a 10-person shop, achieving $1 million in sales or achieving an actual ROI or a profitability measure should be more important to you as a channel manager than the absolute attainment. Again, because you may have 2 or 3 or 4 partners that are achieving the net or the absolute value of $100 million a year, for example, but I may have 100 partners that are capable of achieving 10 million each, right? And if I can draw a line around those folks and I can get them to tier up to platinum, now platinum, instead of just representing my largest partners by volume, platinum is now representing my most profitable and my most scalable partners by ROI performance. So there's tremendous value in that, and we'll talk a little bit more exactly how that works here in a little bit. Rule number 3, be dynamic. Launching a partner program without the ability to dynamically adjust is like setting the steering wheel and then just launching a boat. There's really no ability to course correct, and at that point, you're sort of just floating around. And with today's hyper-competitive channel environment, that's just not going to fly. It's not going to yield the results that you need. It's not going to keep partners engaged and driving value for you. So SIRIUS recommends a similar approach to what we do, which is, they recommend this process of discovering, what a segment needs to look like, what a good partner looks like, for example, ideating in terms of how you actually incent the behaviors and things that are going to drive other partners to end up looking the same and do those types of things, assess and evaluate. And then once you use that input to define your segment, you need to execute on the segment and then close that loop by optimizing and monitoring the actual results and continuing to make adjustments. So what we see a lot of time is, for example, from a tool set perspective, folks will go and they'll build out maybe a partner portal, for example, that is statically configured around the segmentation strategy that exists today. And generally that's just taxonomizing, right? So it's built around, hey, I've got these regional partners, these partner types, maybe a gold, silver, platinum, and that's fairly static. So what happens with that is the program is pretty much predictable and doesn't change. It looks like just like everybody else's. You're not able to adapt and be dynamic and actually do strategic things with your segmentation strategy, implement them quickly, and then actually measure results based on what you've implemented, because you'd have to return and reprogram your whole site in order to accommodate that. So you want to make sure that from a tool set standpoint, what you're doing in terms of actually implementing these is being very, very intentional and very deliberate. So you're not just creating segments again to organize partner, you're clearly stating an objective. Why are we defining this segment? What is it that we intend to do with this group of people? And then identifying and selecting the criteria that define that segment, model the segment in your tool, and then track the results, and then kind of rinse and repeat and see how you're able to impact change. So a great concrete example of this is we see a lot of success around folks kind of reactivating disengaged partners. So when they come in and they decide they're going to revitalize their partner program, they're going to get smarter about their segmentation. For example, they may have had a bunch of partners who were pretty high performing in the past. Now that they have the ability to take a look at what they were doing, they realize we have a lot of high performing partners that have sort of disengaged. So we're going to make a concerted effort to reach out to those specific partners, and we're going to try to bring them back in and get them engaged and participating again in the program. So we want to state our objective is to reactivate disengaged partners. And then second, we're going to establish that definition to model the segment. We're going to say, hey, we're going to decide what thresholds, if they see decreasing engagement over 6 months, we see declining participation in events, declining consumption of content or attendance with events or webinars. We see that their certifications are starting to lapse. For example, a lower percentage of their sales staff is certified than they were a year ago. We see those as signs. So we're going to define our segment as folks who meet that description. And then we're going to now execute a plan of specific content, events, communications, maybe incentives, so on and so forth. Maybe we make that part of our tiering metric, for example. So we change our tiering structure in a dynamic way so that it actually rewards partners for the frequency with which they're engaging as a component of their tiering and leveling up just as much as maybe revenue attainment. So once we're doing that specific execution of that exact product or that strategy against that particular segment, and then we're going to measure the actual results and see how the engagement with those particular disengaged partners went up, what revenue came from those partners, and then we maybe adjust that model and repeat. And then we decide, okay, great, we had some great success there. Let's make another purposeful segment here. We maybe want to make a segment that's designed to incentivize certification. So we're going to look at partners who have a low ratio of certified sales staff to uncertified sales staff, and we're going to design a segment around them, and then we're going to hammer on them specifically to promote the certification process, so on and so forth. We can identify a group of high growth potential partners. Say, for example, we have a partner, we can define this segment as people who have more than 3-to-1 ratio, for example, of employees that are sales versus marketing. And we see that they have more than 50% of their partners are certified, and they have, sales staff is certified. And we know that in general, partners who look like that tend to be able to achieve higher level results. And so based on their company size, based on these things, they look like on paper like a company who should be able to do $10 million, yet they're doing $1 million only. And so we're realizing, hey, the one missing thing between all these partners is their certification, their education. So we're going to define that segment as partners who have that critical mass of sales capability, but just haven't gotten certified. And then we're going to spend time working with them to certify. Maybe we want to make a segment that's designed specifically around helping to improve the time of ramp for new partners. So we're going to put a segment together that says new partners who've logged in once but haven't registered a deal yet and haven't done their first certification, right? And then we're going to target those people specifically to, again, tailor the experience around their stage in the life cycle and their relationship with us in the channel program. The last rule is tooling up and driving a segmented experience. So again, all these segments up until now have been about, just sort of defining the different groups and what constitutes them. And it's about taking those things that aren't just the buckets, but actually using them as dynamic entities that we can use to really target the experience that they're going to have with our partner program. So tools become hypercritical with this. So a lot of what we talked about now is great. You can kind of whiteboard out a really great strategy, but inevitably what it kind of boils down to, how do I in practice actually implement this strategy at scale? For example, if you got 10,000 partners and only 3 channel managers in an organization, poring over a spreadsheet to try to keep track of, you know, which partners are high growth potential partners, which partners are trending towards disengagement, is just logistically unreasonable, right? So, and partner from a tool set standpoint, we have what's called our segmentation AI rules engine that really eliminates the need for buckets. So I don't have to go in and mark every individual partner as, oh, this partner is in fast track, or this partner is in this region, or this partner is in the at-risk segment, for example. Every partner kind of becomes their own unique bucket, and the IMPARTNER system actually does all this sorting for you dynamically. So it's actually a rules-based engine. So you train the system to say, how do you define what inactive partners look like? And then the system is constantly, all 24 hours a day, monitoring everything that's going on with respect to that partner, and to see if any of their activity would land them in that inactive partner segment. Same thing with new partners, or same thing with gold partners. Instead of saying partner X is gold and partner Y is silver, you actually train the system and define for the system what constitutes a gold partner, what constitutes a silver partner. And then the system is always constantly monitoring partner behavior and adjusting and reallocating what segments that those partners belong into. So it's not an active process for you as a channel manager. It's completely hands-off and automated, and that's why we call it Segment AI. We also have tools that, again, we talked about. If we're doing tiering, we want to make sure that's tiering against a personalized plan. So being able to have a tool that can actually establish a business plan is critical for this. And then using the tools that you have in place, our segmentation engine, for example, really ties into everything that we're doing from a partner engagement standpoint. You use it to target specific content to those different segments. So if you've got specific price lists, or specific events that you want to run, for example, to those reactivation group partners that you're trying to reach out and get back into your program, that's where that segmentation capability ties into. So you're targeting not only content, you're targeting the events that you're going to be reaching out to the partners with. You're targeting their portal experience at every level. You're targeting, down to the greeting that they're receiving, the content that they're receiving, the pages that they have access to, the tools they have access to, right on down to the profile information that you may want to seek. For example, if you've got partners that you're identifying as high growth potentials that you want to potentially enroll in a fast track program, there may be some additional profile information you need to collect about that group specifically. That's what the segmentation AI capability, being built in as a core component of the PRM tool set that you've selected, is critical to being able to actually provide that tailored kind of engineered experience to best target every individual type of partner. Target the communication, notifications and things, so that everything that they're receiving from you in terms of content, experience, communication is all tightly engineered around what your objective is around the segment that you're targeting and the segments that they're falling in, so that your reactivation partners are constantly seeing communication, events, collateral, everything tied around engineered processes to get them re-engaged with the program. And finally, we want to make sure that you can measure and report. And that's the other place where segmentation AI provides a huge benefit, is everything that you're establishing in terms of goals for the particular segment you're establishing now automatically closes the loop with reporting. So you've identified, hey, I've got an underperforming partner group that I want to reach out to. So my segmentation is around an underperforming watch list. So not only am I able to segment content or drive communications around those folks, but I'm able to report on them specifically as a group. So it's end-to-end, from original establishing objective, defining the segment, executing a plan against that segment, and then ultimately being able to track and report the outcomes or the changes and the increases among that segment. And customers who implement this successfully and leverage these tools are seeing some tremendous results. Within their first year of use, average across the board, we're seeing around a 30% increase in channel revenue. about a 25% reduction of administrative costs, because you're now not spending the time and just people power around working with partners who just aren't producing, who don't have potential producing, and trying to keep track of, hey, who's in which segment, how should we be dealing with them? But in automated fashion, that's all happening. Dramatic reduction of costs there. And one of the big things that we are very proud of and excited to see is this near 50% increase in activity. Because again, you're now being able to drive a very targeted experience with very specific content that's really meant for every individual group of partners. So the relevance of what is being done from a content and an outreach perspective and a enablement perspective is targeted and spot on for what those particular partners need in order to be drawn into that program on a continual basis and ultimately achieve success. So in summary, our kind of 4 or 5 rules here, there's a bonus one in here, is balance segments between performance related, their stage in the partner life cycle, and taxonomy. And then remember, a critical component of that is remembering the individual. One of the key things that a tool like IMPARTNER'S Segmentation AI allows you to do is create segments not only of partner companies, as we talked about, but you can create segments around individual people at those partner companies, which allows you to not only help try to get 20% partners revenue increase, but you can target the 20% top performers at those 20% top performing partners. Very powerful. 3, ditch the absolute tiering and only level up if you've got individual plans that you're actually incenting against and evaluating those tiering against. 4, be dynamic. And 5, tool up so that you can drive a very segment tailored experience. Thank you very much for everyone's attendance. We're at our half-hour mark. I hope that this content has been informative and useful. For those who may want to stay on the line, if we had any questions, I will answer. Looks like we don't have quite any questions just yet. Oh, we do have one. Give me a second here to see if I can bring this up bigger and read it. Are you able to customize the touch or contact sequence to the customized segment? Yes. So that's kind of really what we're talking about with the tool set being very critical to being able to really get the most out of a segmentation strategy, is that the tool's got to have the segmentation kind of framework built in at its core, so that every piece of collateral you make available through your tool, every promotion that you run, every event that you run is able to be targeted at a specific segment. We've got additional capabilities to your question, Mike, called our workflow framework that allows you to actually tie a lot of those things into some more automation, right? So when a partner does in segment X does behavior Y, then we want to actually reach out to them with message Z, for example. So you can really dial in and automate and tie in everything together so that that particular segment, the groups, people in that segment are getting everything in a totally engineered way that you have complete control over. Another question is, yes, the content I believe will be downloadable, and if there is Salesforce or Marketo integration. We do have Salesforce integration, particularly to track and maintain and include things like pipeline and lead and opportunity pipeline information to be able to use those in conjunction with your segmentation strategy. Marketo and Eloqua, we have done some integrations with those on a custom basis. However, a part of the IMPARTNER platform, mind you, actually has embedded in it a marketing automation platform that is of IMPARTNER'S own design, that's really built around channels, that does is really a sort of a functional equivalent to what a Marketo or Eloqua is going to provide. However, with a channel focused feature set, so that again you can tie the two partner marketing and things, for example, to be aligned with your segmentation strategy in a native way. Thank you again, everyone. I think that's all for our questions and our time. We'll go ahead and end this webinar, and we'll give you a few minutes of your morning back. And I got another question around arranging some one-on-one time. I'd be happy to do that. My contact information is here, gary.sabin@IMPARTNER. If you'd like a demo of the actual tool set that can help you implement and derive these segmentation strategies effectively, go to impartner.com and schedule for a demo. or as always, feel free to reach out to me individually at my email below, and I'd be happy to follow up with you as well. Thanks again, everyone, and have a good morning. Take care. Bye.